But I want to start with something that Gary Chambers, not sure if you guys are familiar with Gary Chambers, he was highlighting that's going down in Louisiana, specifically Baton Rouge. He says it so much better than I do.
Well, old ball coach slash mayor of Baton Rouge, Sid Edwards, has some text messages in the newspaper today. Let's talk about it. Now, in these text messages that I'm about to read to you, the mayor of Baton Rouge is texting with a political operative who has a relationship with one of Trump's appointees to have a conversation about when they're going to bring ICE to Baton Rouge. The mayor has a tax on the ballot November the 15th, and he is expressing to the persons who are communicating with Trump's people, hold off on sending ICE down here until after the election, because I don't want to play in these people's face before the election because they might not pass my tax. Let's talk about it.
That's a little startup there, but I want to give you a little bit of information on what is that Gary Chambers is talking about. Somewhat new mayor of Baton Rouge, Sid Edwards there, who, as he pointed out, ball coach. I guess for most of his adult life, he was a football coach down in Baton Rouge, and he was working with a lot of children in the community, knows folks that were there, knows people's parents. Maybe part of the reasons why he was elected as mayor of the city, gonna clean up that town, right? It seems like lately we've been seeing some leaked text messages from multiple people. Don't forget, we've seen those leaked text messages from those young Republicans that JD Vance called kids, even though they're 30 years old. We've also seen leaked text messages from a nominee that Trump had, talking about how much of a super racist he is. It's like, the people that always knew the folks that were smiling in your face while stabbing you in the back. We're seeing those revelations coming to light. And in this case, it was Sid Edwards.
Now, in the text, Sid says, "Hey, Sarah, sorry for the late text. Talk to Chief LeDuff. If it's ICE agents, we would like to wait until at least after the Thrive election. I think it will hurt us getting it passed. I'd like to talk further on possible the Guard helping with our biggest issues at some point. We got a lot hanging in the balance at this moment. We can revisit in November. I don't want to disappoint Madison, but my priority is the violent crime in the Black community and Thrive. Could you speak with her team and let her know what we are thinking? Thank you." She said, "Yes, sir." He says, "Do you agree with that assessment? And if he'd be glad to speak with her also." She says, "Yes, I agree. It's a risk and we need to assess what's best for our exact climate. A pause is needed. I may have you speak with her once again. If you're okay with that, let me feel her out tomorrow and get back with you. I feel it will clear things in your mind." Sid Gotro and I spoke. He also agrees with you, said he feels there was a problem we were currently dealing with by all means, but he feels we are getting better little by little. He does welcome help from the BRPD, but how would that look? Cool, thank you. She says, "I let Madison know we are at a halt until after November. She is now aware and said for me to let her know once we want to get started." Now, he in the newspaper saying that he doesn't think Baton Rouge needs ICE, but he's not against the military coming into this city.
Just in case you missed what it was that went down in those text messages, that new mayor, Sid Edwards, down in Baton Rouge, who works in the Black community at times, ingratiated himself as he was the old football coach down there, has some secret messages with folks that were connected to the Trump administration and folks that are in charge of maybe sending more National Guard troops into Black communities, the way they've been doing in other cities. Except Sid Edwards needs an election upcoming at the beginning of November to go his way. He doesn't want those same folks that he's looking to help terrorize in those communities to know or to be scared off from the polling places that he's trying to convince them to vote his way on a bill, by the way, on an initiative and a change that would tax them more, that would take more money out of those very same communities. Community things that help the elderly, community things that help with schooling, community things that help with the infrastructure of those areas, to then siphon that money and give it to other areas that don't happen to have those same demographics that he's talking about unleashing ICE officers or the National Guard. I'm sorry, he doesn't want ICE. He'd rather the National Guard be in those communities. So like we've always seen before, when people say, how about you clean up your community? What's going on with all the drugs and the violence and the crime that's happening in those communities? Those communities that suffer from those most times have a lack of resources. And when they do have resources, people that smile in those same community members' faces go in and take things out of that community and give it to other communities that they feel are more worthy. even though those other communities have already been given all kinds of benefits and advantages over these communities before that. But someone can make their entire livelihood and set their name as a pillar in the community because of being a football coach in those same communities where he says he wants the crime to be lowered by sending in the National Guard, smiling in folks' faces while texting behind their backs and not caring that maybe some of those young football players that maybe had won years ago that he used to coach, maybe just might get killed, just might get detained, might get roughed up by these folks that he looks to unleash into these communities because that's what these guys do. I feel like when we really know what you're doing and when you get in those positions of power, we should never trusted you in the first place. Maybe if we see the things that are going on in these communities, this is why we play these abhorrent videos, these videos that actually make your stomach turn, the types of videos that make you look away because you're like, I can't look at this anymore. It's too stressful. For some reason, people, when they're in positions of power, don't care because this is what happens in communities when you unleash lawless law enforcement in these communities.
Mama! Ma! 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 No! No! Ma!
Not sure if you guys have been seeing that video getting circulated, but that's a young girl in the car waiting on her mom who's being harassed by ICE agents or maybe people that are impersonating ICE agents. Who cares what she was doing? Was she was getting assaulted, slammed on the ground, and cuffs slapped on her arms? Because as the story goes, she was providing all kinds of paperwork, all kinds of proof of her right to be here, but they don't care about those things because she was having issues, apparently, according to the story, issues remembering a social security number correctly. Then the attack was on. Can you hear the blood curdling fear in that kid's voice? Her daughter there inside the car who was recording it jumped out and was probably too afraid to do the natural human thing, which was to intervene and save your mother from this type of stuff. But those two pieces of shit went home and congratulated themselves. Maybe they told their families of what a great day they had. Hey, you know what, Mary? I got home. You know what happened today? I arrested and snatched an older lady whose kid was in the car screaming for their mother. It was a great day. It was a great day. Stephen Miller would pat me on the back. That's the type of energy and that's the type of tactics that people like the mayor of Baton Rouge is okay with unleashing on communities because of crime. People need to vote in Baton Rouge against what that guy wants to do to them, since he didn't want them run off by National Guard folks in the streets. Not yet. Let's f them up later. He's following behind a guy who not only wants to unleash, as he was ready to, National Guard into the streets of those black communities, as was said in those text messages, but also maybe full-on active duty military.
Sure, I would do that if it was necessary. You know, if it was necessary to do that, but it hasn't been necessary. We're doing a great job without that. It was necessary. As you know, I'm allowed to do that.
Do you need other branches of the military you would send in, or
Who are you with?
the New York Times?
That's very good. Very good. Well, if you write it correctly, I'll give you the answer. But, you know, I want to enact a certain act. I'm allowed to do it routinely, and about 50% of presidents have used that, as you know, and I'd be allowed to do whatever I want. But we haven't chosen to do that because we're doing very well without it. But I'd be allowed to do that, you understand? And the courts wouldn't get involved, nobody would get involved, and I could send the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, I could send anybody I wanted.
The fascist said he can send the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. He can send anybody. I can do what I want. Have you guys noticed that's been his latest tagline? It's no longer Make America Great Again. It's I can do anything I want. He's been saying it more ever since that No Kings protest a couple of weeks ago when he said, why are they doing these No Kings protests? You know, I can do anything that I want. This happened, I believe, in the Chicago area.
fucking car right here.
Right here. Down bullshit. Show your face though. Show your face though. Show your face though. ¿Cómo se llama?
Santos Mena. Me rompieron los vidrios.
What security and you do that shit? Get back! What? Y'all over here trespassing and shit.
Did you notice that the second car of Gestapo agents rolled up, flashing middle fingers and telling people to get the F back because they're recording? That's the number two thing that they're afraid of. The first thing they're afraid of is people kicking their ass. The number two thing is people recording. And it's all backed up. This is how this all comes together. The main purpose, I think, of this aspect of me showing you guys all these things is how many different levers and people in different positions of power are all in support of this in ways to make sure these things go unchecked and also unseen. That's why I keep showing it every time that I can. That was at a Menards store. And I want to show you what then happened, because from those recordings, one of the people recording was, I guess, a security guard employee or someone that works at that store. This is the letter that he then received. It's about a termination of employment. It said, I'm writing to inform you your employment with O'Brien and Associates is being terminated as of Tuesday the 28th. Due to the following. On Tuesday, October 28th, you were scheduled to work from 8 to 3:30 as a door guard. While on shift, there was an incident that took place in the parking lot. No, it wasn't an incident. It was a kidnapping. Continuing, you took it upon yourself to leave your designated post without approval and go into the parking lot. When asked by your site manager, Michael, what you were doing, you stated that you were, quote, watching ICE. You were instructed to go back to your position at the door. A moment later, as ICE is doing their job, they say, you proceed to argue with an ICE employee and are recording the situation as well. The argument turned to the point where you were almost pepper sprayed by them. You, once again, after being told to stay at your position, leave your position and walk once again into the parking lot. Again, you were told not to leave your position by the site manager, Michael. You became extremely uncooperative and stated, says who? Site manager Michael then informs you to go home due to your insubordination and failure to follow directives and violate policies. Once instructed to go home, you threaten site manager Mike by saying, make me, to him in response to you being sent home. Therefore, you're fired. People are saying that the Menards, the ownership of the Menards, are huge MAGA folks. Big Republican donors have donated millions of dollars. I don't doubt it. I didn't look at that independently myself, but probably. But this guy's getting fired as working a door guard. I believe that's what they said he was, a door guard. And there was an incident happening in the parking lot that you saw what that incident was. So I wonder if someone runs out of the store stealing something, and that incident is something in the parking lot, and the door guard goes and looks at it. I wonder if he's supposed to stay at the door and not do anything about it. And he wasn't even doing anything but recording, documenting a crime. And Menards doesn't like documentation of crimes when it's Donald Trump's Gestapo that's committing those crimes, so they fired him for insubordination. You got mayors of cities that are trying to unleash these guys into the communities, onto these black and brown children. You've got ownerships of these stores where people work at, where they're recording the illegal activity, where they said, you can't do that because that'll be against ICE's policy. By the way, an ICE employee, you almost got pepper sprayed that by them. You almost got unleashed a chemical agent for standing there and recording. So I think we need to start understanding. Yes, there's a fascist in the White House. And yes, there are yes men and Nazis all throughout this country that are happy with the fascist in the White House.